Hey everybody, welcome to this live stream here on X Psychic Sage with me, Jenn Nizza, your friendly former psychic medium. I'm really excited to see people are already in the chat section, and I would just like to encourage you to share this video. If you're watching it on replay, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share these lives and videos, guys, to help us here push the content out into the algorithm. You know, we have to say all the YouTubey things here, okay? And I also would actually like to invite you to become a member of the community X Psychic Saves here. We're actually going to start scheduling our members only lives. And just to be clear about that, it's not some secret group. There's not going to be secretive content that I would ever hold back. It's a place for fellowship, for like-minded individuals that need some encouragement, some scripture reading, some prayers, and a space that is safe to talk about all things former New Age, paranormal activity. I mean, these are not easy conversations to have. Trust me. Some people might give you the stink eye if you start talking about these things, So I would like to invite you to become a member by hitting the join button and join us and welcome to my members here today. God bless you. We are so looking forward to scheduling that first live with you guys. I look forward to that. Okay. But for today, our live stream is on the topic of mindfulness. Now, some of you may think that just means be mindful about something, bringing something to your attention. What really is mindfulness, and is it a safe practice? Why is it a healing modality, or should I say false healing modality? Why is it in the school system as well? Why are children being encouraged to practice mindfulness? Well, to answer these questions, one of your favorite people and one of my favorite people and sisters in Christ is Marcia Montenegro, the president of I've Got an Article for Everything, is here with us today. You can find her. She's laughing in the background. We still have to make her a shirt of you can find Marsha on Christian Answers, newage.com, and go to the search bar, guys, on her website, and you can put whatever you're curious about, you want to know something about, because literally Marsha most likely has an article about it, including the topic today, which is mindfulness. And I'd like to mention that this most likely will be part one, as long as you guys want to hear more and more, because this is an extensive topic. So we would love to come back again with a part two. And, we just like to hang out with you guys too. Trust me, we do. But having said all that lengthy introduction, let me bring on our sister in Christ, Miss Marcia Montenegro.
Hi, Jenn.
Hi, Marcia. How are you?
Fine. That was a great intro.
Did you like that?
Yeah, I did like it. I do want to say that my hypothetical T-shirt does not say I have an article on everything. It says I have an article on that.
Oh, I like that.
Well, that's what I'm always saying, because something will come up in a topic. We're talking, and then I'll say, "Oh, I have an article on that." So
okay,
I think so many people have heard me say it. They know I've said it a lot. So that's the T-shirt. Not I have an article on everything, because I do not have an article on everything.
All right, I correct that by saying most likely has an article.
Okay. All right. Okay.
You can have more than one T-shirt. You're not limited.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Why
one T-shirt? Sure.
So Marsha, we've been talking about, we were going to do this as a video, and then, life got in the way and whatever. And then we decided upon doing a live on this topic. And I'm so glad that you agreed to do it. I'm so appreciative always of your ministry and just your grace too, with all the things that go on and the scheduling and everything. We're hearing more and more about mindfulness, and it's not that it's a new thing, but I think that with these topics, they just, how the enemy just, keeps regurgitating them and uses whatever he has that's current and active to keep pushing it out. But this isn't really a new practice, and it certainly isn't a safe one. So
It's not a new one, no.
yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to start off by saying just yesterday, just a little over 24 hours ago, I was in an office with my sister in the waiting area. My sister went over to the coffee machine to get some decaf coffee. And it was a new kind of little machine that you put the packet in. It's not a Keurig, but it was kind of that idea. And she was trying to figure it out, put the packet in, and then you push a button or whatever. And she got it in there and pushed the button and stood there to wait. And while she waited, on the screen, it said, take a mindful moment, breathe in, breathe out slowly. I did not see the words, but she said, hey, Marsha, this machine is telling me to take a mindful moment. And I said, what? I said, tell me what it said. So it said something like that. Not just take a mindful moment, but breathe in slowly, breathe out slowly. I think I can't remember if the slowly was there or not. But there you go. I thought, what a perfect example. I said, I'm doing a program tomorrow on mindfulness. I said, I'm going to use this as an example of how we see it, everywhere. It is just
it's becoming the new normal. I mean, but this is how
it is. It has already become the new normal. I hear that word all the time. I see it all the time. You see it in advertising. You see it in medical advice or health advice. You see it even in Christian type settings. And so I want to say that I started my first Facebook post about this was 2011.
Okay.
And that's because I was already getting into the culture pretty heavy. It actually really goes back further. So what is the problem with this? This is one of the common questions people have, like, what is wrong with being mindful? So let's start there. When you say, I want to be mindful, and you mean it in the meaning that we normally use, it means we want to be aware of something, or we want to pay attention to it. There's, be mindful of the ice. Okay, that applies very much this week to where you and I live. Be mindful of the ice and snow. Be aware of something. Okay, that is not what mindfulness is. Now, they may use the word aware, but the whole context and meaning is completely something else. It's a whole other category. And it's actually a form of Buddhist meditation. So let me just put that right out there. So I won't play around making you wonder, well, what is it? It's a form of Buddhist meditation. I also want to say I did it for 12 years when I was in the New Age. I was very much into Zen Buddhism. I read Zen Buddhist texts, people who were popularizing Zen Buddhism in the US, like Alan Watts and Suzuki and other people like that. I read their books, and I also went to Zen Buddhist meditation places where you would just go and sit with other people and do. They don't call it meditating; they call it sitting. And you do the sitting. You sit. They don't say meditate. They say sit, because meditate has other baggage and meanings connected to it. So just sit, because Zen Buddhism is very much the idea that you get everything out of the way, and it's all boiled down to like the nitty gritty essential as Zen Buddhism sees it. Because Zen Buddhism started, it wasn't around originally with Buddhism. It developed much, much later. Like, I should have checked my notes, because I actually have a whole outline on the history of Buddhism. But I think it was around maybe the 15th century. It might have been earlier. But the idea was the teachers at that time were wanting to cut away from what they saw as extra stuff. I may cough a little.
Okay.
I've got some hot tea though, so let me
Okay, good. I was just going to ask you.
So, so here's the thing. Mindfulness, let me describe what it really is, and then I'll give examples of how we're seeing it and how it's presented, and why this is something that I don't recommend. Basically, mindfulness is a spiritual practice.
Okay.
The purpose is not relaxation. The purpose is not to become more aware, as a lot of people think it is. Well, it's going to help me focus, or it's going to help my mind focus. Okay. In a way, that's part of the purpose, but it's not the way that you think it is. That's the problem. The purpose of it is to disengage your thinking process so that you are in a state of mind free of thoughts.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that they think that when you're thinking about things, you're attaching yourself to this reality that is not real. In Buddhism, this reality doesn't exist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yourself does not exist. Right. So
if you don't exist, how can you sit?
Well, yeah. Good question. You're sitting with the conventional self and the conventional body, as they call it.
Gotcha.
It's we see things, and there's this apparent reality that we're in because we have become attached to the idea that it's real. Now, actually, in Buddhism, all that exists is Buddha nature. That's all that exists. It's kind of like Taoism. In Taoism, all that really exists is the Tao. And in fact, Zen Buddhism is a mixture of Buddhism and Taoism. Okay. So there's a lot of Taoist ideas, which I was also into Taoism in Zen Buddhism, which is one reason that I liked it. I'm sorry. Sorry about this.
You're fine. It's weird because the word Zen was used so much, and maybe still is being used so much, but maybe not with a proper, quite the full understanding that it was in and of itself part of a false religion. I think of whenever I used to hear the word Zen, somebody was very Zen, like very calm, very.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. That kind of goes along with what I'm explaining with mindfulness.
Yeah.
You have these words that get attached to ideas, and people think that's what it means. So they think, oh, you're being very Zen. That's because you're being calm. Because there's an idea that the Zen monks are always calm. Okay, this is not good that I'm coughing like this. Sorry.
Everybody start praying for Marsha right now, immediately. Lord, heal that cough.
I wasn't. I mean, I'm normally not coughing very much. I have some kind of sinus thing, but
I'm sorry.
I think because I'm talking, maybe it's doing it. I don't know, but we'll see. Sometimes it just goes away. All right. Anyway, thank you guys for praying if you're praying and for being here and listening. So so you have this whole Zen thing that's become an industry where people just assume it has to do with being calm and relaxed, maybe. And that's kind of transferred over to mindfulness.
Right.
That it's something that is going to calm you down and get you, maybe the word centered, of course, is used a lot, or focused or aware. But the whole idea of it is, as I was saying, is to disengage your thoughts so that you realize eventually that your thoughts that are coming to you are not being generated by you.
Oh, wow.
They're not being generated by you. They're just out there. They're just kind of generated as part of this false reality. And you're supposed to realize that. And then eventually you realize that there's no self. So you basically are disassociating yourself from reality. And this is why many studies on mindfulness now, you can find a lot more now than you could even 5 years ago, although I posted some a number of years ago in some of my Facebook posts. You can find secular articles about studies they've done where it shows that doing mindfulness on a regular basis has led to depression, psychotic breaks, suicidal thoughts. People feel to disassociation, which is where a person feels like they aren't who they are or they don't know who they are. And actually, that is the purpose of mindfulness. But what happens with these people is that they don't know about that when they're doing it. They don't know what it is. They don't know the ideas behind it. And it happens to them. And it's scary, of course. I mean, you're suddenly feel attached to reality or to who you are. Like, I'm not even sure I'm who I am anymore. You know I'm Marcia Montenegro, but I don't know who that is. I don't know.
Wow.
Does that person exist? Do I even exist? That is the reason that's happening, is because in those cases, mindfulness is working. That's what's happening. Right. So it's actually working the way it's supposed to. It just worked maybe too fast on that person, and they weren't aware of what it meant or what it was about. So that is one reason you have all of these negative experiences that people have. So I did it, and I can tell you that over time, it did change my view of reality. It altered it so that, of course, I had the Zen Buddhist. I was reading the Zen Buddhist ideas and finding them, to me, they were intriguing and they made sense. And, they just did. And so I understood kind of the idea that I'm feeling, kind of detached from reality. Well, that's how I'm supposed to feel. So I wasn't like in shock or, psychotic or anything. I never felt like I wasn't existing or anything like that. I never got to an extreme with it. But I had these awarenesses of reality being this thing that was just separate from me, and that I was just kind of here, but not really here. It's very hard to explain.
It sounds like an acid trip or something. Not that I've ever done acid, I haven't, but it sounds like a drug, in like a consequence or a hallucination or something like that.
Yeah, it sounds like it, except you're not hallucinating, and you're totally, aware. You're like conscious, and you're not, I didn't have any mental problems at all. I was functioning, very high functioning. But it's this view of reality that's shifting. And our view of reality is very important. It's very important. And that's one reason I talk about it. In fact, I have an article that I should be posting soon. I've been working on for 2 years about why it's important for Christians to understand there is one reality, and that we get that from Scripture. So the biblical view of reality is God created everything, and everything is reality. I mean, including what we can't see, such as, where God is, or the angels, or where the angels are, and, the spiritual realms, I guess, if you want to call them that. No, I can't look out and, say, I want to see an angel now. So there's an angel over by that tree. There's reality we can't see. We don't have access. Same with the demonic realm. Usually we don't usually have access to that, but it's still part of reality. It's still part of everything exists because God created it, right? Otherwise it couldn't exist, right? Sure. Yeah. So God doesn't need it, and God existed, always has existed, eternally. It's very hard to wrap our minds around this, but the reality that we know exists according to Scripture is a true reality. It's not a false reality. And it's really important also not to have the idea of there's different realities out there. This is actually a New Age idea that I had. Yeah. Different levels of reality, different levels of truth. So what mindfulness does, it starts altering your perception of reality. And the thing is that while it's doing this, you aren't necessarily aware of this. You aren't aware that, my perception of reality is being altered. You know,
Right.
it's something that you may notice at some point, but the only reason I think I noticed it is because I knew about what the Buddhist view of reality was, and I knew what mindfulness was supposed to be about. And so I was expecting things, you know. I don't know that you would even really notice, except maybe you did it for a real long period of time, you might notice. So mindfulness got into this country. I think there were different ways that it came in. Some books were written about Zen Buddhism by, I mentioned Alan Watts and T.D. Suzuki. That kind of helped open the door for this, because Zen Buddhism kind of became, in some quarters, kind of a popular thing. Like the beat poets in the 50s were very much into Buddhism. Then in the 60s, of course, you had a big opening to Eastern religions, mainly Hinduism, but it also opened the door to Buddhism. And you had meditation beginning, initially with a lot of Hindu meditation becoming popular, transcendental meditation in the 70s, more Eastern meditations, forms of Eastern meditations after that. And in around 1979, this man named Jon Kabat-Zinn opened basically a mindfulness center. He started a program in a hospital in Massachusetts. And patients with chronic illnesses or terminal illnesses were sent there, or I guess they were recommended, you know, people, their caretakers said you should go there. And they would go there, and he taught them to do mindfulness. And this was supposedly a way to help them cope with these serious illnesses. They did a program on this in the 90s, like it's one of those news programs like 60 Minutes or something. They did a program, and one of the segments was on Jon Kabat-Zinn and mindfulness, and I happened to see it. And they showed him in the room there that he used for the patients coming in, and there was a big statue of Buddha in the room. And I was watching this. I was a Christian at the time. I had become a Christian. And I thought, wow, that's just so blatant. They have a statue of Buddha. But in a way, that's a good thing, because it makes you aware. If you had been a Christian and had gone there, maybe, you know, your therapist or whatever said this would be a good place for you to go, and you went there and saw a statue of Buddha, you might be like, oh, no, thank you, not for me. But now that statue of Buddha is kind of gone. It's not as common, except in New Age arenas. So now you have the mindfulness that is being promoted as either a technique, a helpful technique, some kind of method to deal with anxiety, to deal with trauma, et cetera, et cetera. I have so many people who have contacted me saying, you know, their counselor or their therapist or their doctor has recommended mindfulness to them. And a lot of people who are seeing counselors for mental or emotional issues are told, basically, you need to do mindfulness.
It sounds a lot like yoga too. I mean, it reminds me of yoga in the way that, you know, yoga is also being promoted from therapists. It's on apps. It's, you know, whatever, for anxiety, even for depression, not just your arthritis anymore, but, you know, your mental afflictions. Even these, you know, gyms, of course, I mean, because it's yoga, right? But it's in schools and everything. So the appeal, this is what gets me. And I hear you saying this with the mindfulness too, taking people that probably have zero idea about false religions or maybe any form of religion, right? And the illusion is it's just to make them feel better. Like that's the hook, the illusion of it, right? Enemy is very famous for. And then they go in there, and you said that you're aware when you're doing it, but you know, I always think back on when you told me about meditation. I used to think meditation was emptying your mind, and you said, no, it's not emptying your mind, it's filling your mind with lies versus truth. Is there a similarity between that?
I don't think I ever said it's filling your mind with lies, but what I try to say is most Eastern meditation, the idea of it is to put your mind in a neutral state. That's what I usually say.
Yeah, it was in one of our videos. You said it was like when you go into a trance-like state or changing your state of mind, right? And then it's not that it's empty, it's now you're living lies. There are lies, even guided meditations and things like that.
Oh yeah. That definitely puts things in your mind on purpose.
Yeah.
Like a guided meditation will actually tell you to, or guided visualization, that will put things in your mind, right? In Zen Buddhism and some other forms of Eastern meditation, the idea is to really, even with the kind where you have a mantra where you repeat the mantra, it's the whole idea is to not have your thinking mind going on, because when you kind of stop your thinking, your critical thinking is suspended. So you're not able to be evaluate something. You're not judging it. You're not looking at it. You're just kind of, your thinking is not functioning. It's kind of suspended. That's why I say put your mind in neutral, and then your mind's open to a lot of things. So that may be what you're thinking of. You're filling your mind with lies, but you're not doing it on purpose. Your mind is just just open. It's open. And you can get to that non-thinking state with these techniques, and mindfulness teaches it, and it's really not hard at all. So that's one reason I warn against these particular breathing exercises. And a lot of people get so mad at me, like, what's wrong with breathing slowly? And what's wrong with taking a deep breath, Marsha? And I try to point out the fact that I'm not talking about just taking one or two deep breaths,
right,
when you're upset or something. I'm talking about a technique that you're practicing, over a period of time. If you sit down and try to do these breathing exercises for several minutes, it can put you in the whole idea is it will put you in an altered state. You don't necessarily know that that's happening. That's the whole problem.
Wow.
So you do it and you don't think anything unusual has happened. And you may feel, here's the thing, you may feel relaxed. You may feel more relaxed. You may feel, or you may feel your mind is sharper or something like that after you do it. So people feel that they're getting positive results from it. But the problem is that it has this other thing going on that you're not aware of. It's definitely a spiritual technique, and it's not a natural thing that you do. So it's not daydreaming. It's not sitting here looking out the window, kind of, sometimes you're just looking out the window. You're not really trying to think about anything. You're not trying to plan when you're going to do the laundry or whatever. You're just looking out the window because you just feel like not doing anything. And you're not even really daydreaming. You're just kind of, we used to say you're kind of spaced out or something. That's not it either. That's a normal thing, I think, where you're just giving your mind a rest. Or you're just gazing at something beautiful. Okay, that's not mindfulness either.
Right.
So I want to be clear that people understand this is not you don't naturally do mindfulness. You have to be instructed in it. But the thing is, a lot of people that are teaching it may call it something else. They may not call it mindfulness. So that's another problem too.
What else would they call it? Just meditation? Or
they might just call it meditation. They might call it a relaxation exercise.
Wow.
In some schools where they've had these kind of programs, they just use other words like calm, or focus or something like that. So you can't, mindfulness is a popular word now, and it seems to be have so much positivity attached to it that I don't think people are really trying to avoid it.
Right.
But I still want to just point out that sometimes you don't hear the word because they may be aware that some people know that it's a Buddhist thing. So they may want to just use a very secular sounding word or a word that they think is neutral, like meditation, which is such a big umbrella term. It covers so many things. So, or stress reduction is popular, so if you say this is a stress reduction technique you can do, then you're automatically thinking, okay, well, this sounds helpful. I'll try this. So back to the mindfulness thing, John, I wanted to point out Jon Kabat-Zinn studied under a Zen Buddhist master. And when they were introducing mindfulness in the schools here, they started, introduced it into a big high school it's only like maybe 3 miles from me or something. I went to they had a big presentation for parents and teachers.
Okay.
And I found out about it from the parents of one of, the teens at my church who knew that I was writing about this and aware of it. And she told me about it. And anybody could go. So I went with a friend. And they had 2 suicides the year before in the school, and I think maybe one the year before. And so now they were thought of doing mindfulness. Now, let me point out how this happened, how I think it happened. There are these independent organizations, several of them, and when they see, this is my guess, they see something's going on, like in this county, there was a lot of talk because of the suicides. And they knew the schools would be looking for solutions. They go to the school and say, hey, this program, mindfulness program, will help the students. It will help them deal with their anxiety about this issue. We will come in. We will send teachers in at no charge to come do it as an experiment. And that's how I think it happens. Now, it also could be that someone on the school board knows about mindfulness or does it and suggests it. So that's also possible. But I know that these independent organizations are very active in the schools. And so that's what they were doing. And they had the parents and everybody there to talk about it. They had the woman, the main speaker was Tara Brach. Tara Brach runs a huge Buddhist meditation center in the Washington, D.C. area.
Wow.
It's huge. I knew about her already when I went to this meeting because I had looked her up and read stuff about her. And she calls herself, a teacher of Buddhist meditation. She doesn't hide that.
Wow.
And she was the main speaker. And she did this talk about mindfulness. And then she said, I'm going to lead everybody into a short mindfulness exercise so you know what it's like. And she did. Now, of course, my friend who was with me and myself did not participate.
Right, of course.
This was in it's an auditorium. It's a high school in the county with the largest auditorium. It seats 1,000 people.
Oof.
And I can tell you that it was pretty packed. I mean, there might have been 20 seats that weren't taken. Otherwise, every seat was taken. After she spoke and did this exercise, then they had the congressman, whose name now has gone out of my head. He's no longer a congressman, from Ohio. He became an advocate, a student of mindfulness, and a huge advocate of it. He wrote a book called Mindful America. Anybody Googles that on Amazon, you can tell us the author. I think, I'm sorry, I'm not sure that's the name. I think it's the name, because I think there is a book. I'm not sure if that's the congressman I'm thinking of. Anyway, he had already succeeded in getting mindfulness in a lot of the schools in Ohio. Now, I started noticing how it was going through the schools, and I started posting a lot about that. So between 2011 and 2019, I was very active posting on mindfulness, trying to explain what it is. And you just can't explain it in one sentence, because you've got to explain the Buddhist idea behind it. And so I told you a little bit about it, that this reality doesn't exist. And, okay, so the idea is that you want to understand that, but then why? The reason why is that they think that you have rebirth. Okay, it's kind of like reincarnation in Hinduism.
Okay.
It's a little different in Buddhism. but they think you have rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is to escape rebirth.
Oh,
Just
wow.
like in Hinduism, the idea is to escape reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea, excuse me,
It's okay.
the idea is to escape. I know that cough sounds awful. I'm so sorry. You'll have to hear it.
No, no, you're fine. Why would you want to
really-
escape? I'm sorry. Why would you want to escape in these religions? Why would you want to escape rebirth? Is it because then you would have reached this nirvana or this?
Yes, yeah, yes, because Buddha taught that everything is suffering. Life is suffering. It's all suffering. That was the realization he came to. So he said, but there is a way to escape suffering. And so he said, here's the way. And so, he taught the Eight Noble Truths. One of the Eight Noble Truths is mindfulness.
See?
So this is one of the ways, because the way one of the ways to escape rebirth is to cultivate detachment.
Mm-hmm.
And detachment means that you eventually understand the reality is not real and yourself isn't real. Therefore, you can detach. You no longer have the desire to be in this reality.
Wow.
And when you reach that point, you escape rebirth and you escape the state of non-attachment, which is called nirvana. That's what nirvana is. It's not a place. It's a state of non-attachment.
Oh, I mean, but you know, the word I was thinking, escape, like you just mentioned, this is the ultimate escape from problems, life, from reality. It's the ultimate escape. It's like the ultimate drug of choice for these people in a sense. Do you know what I mean? How people look to escape because they can't cope with suffering or with,
Right.
without Christ.
Right, except you have to get there, you have to do the Buddhist stuff. And if you're really, if you really want escape, most people want escape, I don't know, I think are more impatient about it, or more, they'll do something that's much easier, like take some kind of drug or something. This is a more, because this could take a lot of rebirths. You don't do this in one lifetime.
Oh, excuse
So
me.
you can't think you're going to escape just by doing mindfulness in this life.
Okay.
In fact, the chances are you won't. You're going to have many, many rebirths before you get to that point.
Wow. So you have to hang on to these lies for the rest of your life. Wow. You in hopes of the next one, or not hopeful for the next one, or what? It's
I
really
know.
rather heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is. It's really a bleak.
Yeah.
I think it's very bleak.
It is.
Because what is the hope? The hope is that, well, I'll just keep at it, and in my next time around, I may be more spiritually aware and spiritually advanced, and I can cultivate detachment more, and then maybe I can hurry up to, you're not ever supposed to hurry, though. You're not. Here's the other thing. In Buddhism, desire is an attachment. So if you desire nirvana, or you desire that, then that's an attachment. So you have to cultivate a detachment to the desire.
Isn't this interesting, Marcia? Susie says, my Japanese grandmother was Buddhist. She said nirvana was like the wisp of smoke after blowing out a candle.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, that is an idea. I've heard that idea before. That, because see, you're the candle, and you're just this flame. You don't really have this reality. It's just this flame that came about from, the whatever the actions are that cause the flame. I'm not very good at science. Striking a match, there are these little interactions that go on, chemical or whatever. So then the flame is there, but yeah, then it just goes out, and what's left? What's there? Is the flame there anymore? Just smoke.
Right. Wow.
So actually, that was a good way. Thank you, Susie, for that quote. That was good. So this whole idea is to cultivate detachment, and that's what mindfulness is for. That's the purpose of it.
Which really is no purpose at all, because if you're just a wisp of smoke at the end of the day, what's the reason for your existence to start? And I don't say that, to say that Christianity is, you know, a lot of people will say that's just a way to, because people are fearful that there's nothing, that there's whatever, like Christianity is just no, it really answers the questions that we all ask before coming to Christ. It's real answers, real truth, real fulfillment. This has been one of the bleakest topics. Like, you know, I feel sad.
I know. Sorry about that.
No, it's not your fault.
It's very bleak, especially when you know Christ.
Right.
But this has an enormous appeal to a lot of people like me. I found I do not consider myself intellectual, but I tended to find that a lot of very intellectual types, especially men, were drawn to Zen Buddhism. And when I went and did these little sitting sessions, sometimes we would go out to lunch afterwards, and I would be sitting there, mostly men. There was more men than women. And trying to talk to the men, and it was really even hard to talk to them. They were just kind of on this intellectual level that they weren't super, you know, I'm thinking of a particular group. So this doesn't apply to everybody, of course, but they weren't, I was going to say they weren't super conversational, but, you know, they were just, it's just a certain intellectual view they had. And Buddhism is atheistic. I mean, there is no God in Buddhism. So it attracts a lot of agnostics and atheists because they don't see it as a religion. They see it as a philosophy. And a lot of people will say Buddhism isn't a religion, it's a philosophy. And so it attracts a lot of these non-religious types who tend to be either kind of atheist or agnostic, and who a lot of them tend to be intellectual. Now, I was not an atheist. I was a New Ager. I believed in the New Age God, but I was able to blend these Buddhist ideas with my New Age ideas.
Right.
You know, they were kind of blended. I didn't have a purely Zen Buddhist outlook. I was not, I never have called myself a Zen Buddhist because I wasn't. But I took on some of the Zen Buddhist ideas, incorporated them, and I did this practice of mindfulness. I had previously done Tibetan Buddhist meditation, which is different, and I had done Hindu meditation, which is different. The Tibetan Buddhist meditation is more like Hindu meditation than it is like Zen Buddhist meditation, but it's Buddhist in nature. So there are all these different types of approaches and meditations based on the philosophy behind them. And after Jon Kabat-Zinn did that at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center, it spread to 200 hospitals. So it started in these hospital settings, and then it started becoming, you know, therapists started, you know, either teaching it or recommending it. Different people started doing it. Then and of course the New Age embraced it.
Right.
So then more and more people in the New Age started doing mindfulness, like me. And then it kind of, like a lot of things in the New Age, it started going mainstream because it was able to be sold as a technique for stress reduction, for calming anxiety. It became part of psychology. Actually, there's a big influence from Buddhism on psychology today, and I've done a few Facebook posts on it. I don't have an article on that. I probably need to take my Facebook posts and make that into an article on the Buddhist influence on psychology. Now, I don't have degrees in psychology, so I can't talk about it as somebody familiar with the field, but I can at least maybe put my information there about the influence on it. And I think people in psychology would agree with me. I'm not saying anything that they aren't aware of.
Right.
There is a Buddhist influence. And let me say this. Then maybe we could, I don't know, do you want to start taking questions or something?
I'd like to. Yeah, I wanted to say a couple of things too, but go ahead, finish up whatever you want.
Yeah, that very popular movie, Inside Out, is full of Buddhist concepts. Inside Out. It's the girl who she has all these emotions, and so it pictures her emotions as a committee in her head.
Oh, wow.
And you're not familiar with that movie? I can't remember.
The name sounds familiar, but I don't think I saw it.
It was really, really, it was a big hit. In fact, now they have Inside Out 2, or they're going to have it. I'm not sure if it's out yet, but because where she's older and she's like a teenager.
Okay.
In the other movie, she's young. I think maybe, I don't know what she is, maybe 10 or 11, and maybe a little younger. And so it pictures. And so when I read about the movie, I thought this reminds me of Buddhism, because Buddhism wants you to see your emotions not as you, as a separate thing, like this committee. And then the more I read about it, the more I thought, this really sounds kind of Buddhist. Then I started researching it. Wow. And I found out the Dalai Lama was a consultant. And yeah, the Dalai Lama was a consultant. I thought, well, there it is. I was right. Then I also found all these articles by in psychology, articles by counselors and therapists talking about the Buddhist concepts in it. I mean, they thought it was great. They're like, yes, there's this Buddhism in Inside Out. Inside Out presents these views. I thought, wow, well, I was right in my first response when I read about the emotions as a committee, because the Dalai Lama talks. Now, he's not a Zen Buddhist. I do want to, in case people are saying, but Marsha, he's not a Zen Buddhist. He's a Tibetan Buddhist. I know that. But the same Buddhist ideas are there about reality, cultivating detachment. That's also in Tibetan Buddhism. That's in all Buddhism. And so the mindfulness isn't there as far as I know. But the Zen Buddhist ideas are. I mean, not the Zen Buddhist, the Buddhist ideas are, which are both Tibetan and Zen Buddhist. Wow. So that's not a movie about mindfulness, but what I'm pointing out is it has these Buddhist concepts in it. And I do have an article on it on my website on that movie, Inside Out.
Oh, great.
Yeah. After I did 2 Facebook posts on it, because I did one before I saw the movie and I had done some research. Then I saw it, and then I wrote another Facebook post. So now it's an article on my website.
I realize that's why I recognize the name. My friend actually took her children to see.
Oh, I know. It was very popular, and a lot of Christians saw it. And so when I wrote my warnings about it, I mean, some people were upset because they had gone to see it with their children, and they thought, oh no, I shouldn't have gone. And other people were upset because they saw it and they didn't see anything wrong with it. So, I had to explain, no, it's not really obvious. But that's why I'm explaining it to you, and and it's obviously not just my view, because here's what I found: these people, this corroboration that I'm correct. So anyway, I don't think anyone should be upset if they took their children, because I don't think that, just watching the movie as entertainment with the humor in it and everything. That's what people are going to notice. They're not going to think about it philosophically like I do.
Right. Hopefully not.
Yeah. So, and I think I noticed it because I was into Buddhism. That's why. So certain things jump out to me. And so I don't think that it's going to make you like all of a sudden be interested in Buddhism to see that movie. But my whole point of writing about it was to say, here's how these ideas can be imported in a very subtle way. So, and by showing you this, then you can understand what these ideas are, so that if they pop up again, you'll recognize them. That's my purpose. My purpose isn't to try to make people feel bad or guilty.
Sure, of course not.
Or like they should have known, well, you should have known that was Buddhist. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying this is an example of something happening in our culture that's importing some Buddhist concepts.
Yeah.
So that got away from mindfulness, but
that's
it kind of, it definitely connected. So, okay.
The thing on mindfulness that I had one question and just a couple of comments. One, of course, is that we know that any false philosophy, false religion is the work of the evil one, and he is a skilled liar and manipulator, and taking preying on PREY, preying on the vulnerable, and you're talking about the sick and these hospitals and doing these programs, the mindfulness for these people, but also the children and schools. And we know that the enemy loves to recruit them young. Let me tell you something, but this is what gets me, Marcia. I'm going to be honest, it actually is rather aggravating and infuriating that there are spiritual practices in these schools, but there's supposed to be separation of church and state. And it becomes a big problem when we talk about Christianity. But we can do smudging, we can do meditation, we can do yoga, and we can do mindfulness in schools. And the hypocrisy is just terrible. But again, targeting the vulnerable. Children are vulnerable. They're very vulnerable, right?
Right.
The sick are very vulnerable. People that truly are lost, and that's all of us until we come to Christ. We're lost, we're on the hamster wheel, we're in the dark, and looking for answers, looking for help, looking for healing. And it's very upsetting, but that is why it's so important to educate ourselves, watching people like yourself and reading your articles, because it's so subtle sometimes, the deception, even in the movies, but yet Satan has a way of putting his dirty work right out there. But if you're not aware of these false philosophies and teachings, then you can get into some trouble. Because you know what? I recently made a video about Harry Potter just because people asked me.
Yeah.
And without even getting into the whole Harry Potter thing, my point is this. I just remember being a little kid, just think about when we were all little kids, right? And watching something that you don't have you don't even have the ability to fully understand what you're watching. But I can tell you this, a vulnerable little heart, a vulnerable little mind, right? And you don't know what the child is thinking, but children go through things in their life that are pressing on them and may desire that detachment or power or control, whether it's by doing spells, whether it's readings or whatever, sorcerers, or just a different way of coping with things that, of course, are being taught by the liar and not coming to the understanding that Jesus is who we need. We need him for all of the suffering, all the trials and everything else. And in fact, we have such wonderful news in Christ Jesus. We have such wonderful news that no matter what happens, it's temporary. And we go on to be in glory with Jesus, not this strange, I don't know if I'll ever forget that. I forget a lot of things. I have a horrible memory. But that smoke, that wisp of smoke, how sad.
Well, Nirvana means extinguishing.
Extinguishing. Okay.
Extinguishing.
Ooh, that is even like, ooh.
Yeah, so it's extinguishing the flame. But they see it because of Buddha teaching everything is suffering, and people do, a lot of people live lives that are suffering, and they're living a really hard life with a lot of struggles. It's easy to believe that. And others, I did not come up with this idea, but I think it's a really good one. In Buddhism, the idea is to escape suffering. In Christianity, Jesus suffered for us. He took on suffering, and he did that to pay the penalty for sins, so that all who believe in him can have eternal life with God. So it's like an opposite thing. Jesus never denied suffering. He never taught everything's all, great, it's all roses and sunshine. To the contrary, because the people he was talking to, the Jews, were under Roman, rule. There was a lot of pagan worship. The Jews had a hard time with, they had to walk around and see all these idols in the marketplace, etc. If they were in those areas. So, there was just, there was paganism was it. And Jesus came along, perfect, living the perfect life, showing the love of the Father, the love and the mercy, but also condemnation of sin. But then he dies for that. He he does that. So it's so different from Buddhism. And of course, in Buddhism, like all the other religions, you have to do it on your own. Whatever
Right.
the purpose is, you have to accomplish that yourself. So,
And it all just leads to more and more sin, which of course is not sin at all, according to these philosophies and religions, right? Because I was thinking to myself when you were describing mindfulness, well, how does that person live the rest of their life in regards to, well, we know that there's going to be sin. They probably are not accountable for anything that they do, that, well, they don't subscribe to our God, so there's no accountability. So they have the subjective view of good and bad, I suppose, right? And can just, are they afraid if they do something? Could they anger anybody if they committed murder? What would happen in their minds? Somebody who followed.
you mean
Somebody who's they're practicing mindfulness to
to be detached? You mean, are you
yeah,
saying, do they think murder is okay?
yeah. Would they think that's okay, or
No,
would
no,
that be bad?
no, no. It's mindfulness does it. Mindfulness is a practice. Now, are you asking, does Buddhism think murder is wrong? Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's still this, because, and I think Romans 2 addresses this. We all have a conscience.
Right.
And so God gave us that to know that there is such a thing as right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And because Adam and Eve knew this, because they knew it
Mm-hmm.
was wrong to disobey God,
Mm-hmm.
it was wrong, but Eve was tempted into it,
Mm-hmm.
and then Adam, went along with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, the idea is all societies, as far as I know, have laws against murder and stealing.
Mm-hmm.
And that, all of them, all pagan throughout history, I think, going
Mm-hmm.
way back, that's always been a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, they would say it's wrong, but their view of it is still, like, for example, in Hinduism, some might explain it as something from karma.
Right. That's what Marco just mentioned. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So maybe, this person was killed because in a previous life he killed somebody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And something like that. In Buddhism, that idea might be there. I'm not sure how much the Buddhists think like the Hindus in that sense. I think there is some overlap, but I think it's more of, it's an action, of course, that they're against, but at the same time, there is no absolute moral standard. So what you find is, in contrast to this view that we have of monks being so peaceful and calm because they do this meditation. I mean, I think this idea is very popular in the United States and in Europe, that monks are just like these calm people.
Mm-hmm.
In China, for example, there was a lot of wars between the monks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were violent wars.
Right.
They can do violent things. There was a big protest against something the Dalai Lama said. Apparently he was against one of the deities. Now, even though there's no God in Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism merged with Bon, which is the animistic religion that has deities. And so there actually are deities in Tibetan Buddhism. And there was one who had these followers, and I can't remember now the story, but the Dalai Lama made a speech sort of against this particular deity, and it made all of these followers of that deity really mad, and they had this real violent kind of uprising over it. So I'm not saying that they have some kind of standard like you find in Christianity about murder. I think they see it as wrong because ending life is a bad thing, even though your life is suffering, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not based on any absolute standard. It's just, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know where they would say that idea comes from. I'm not sure. But
I would love to hear more about that, Marsha. Like, I would love to do maybe our part 2. Could we go into a little bit more about Buddhism itself? It seems as though, you mentioned earlier when you were in the New Age, of course you mishmashed, overlapping. I did that too. You know, we tend to do that. But people, when you see that out there, people use words without, even Christians sometimes use words like karma without
Yes,
understanding what
yeah.
it is. And a lot of people still, I mean, I even did a video about a short one about reincarnation and, you know, and karma and such, but it's very, very popular.
Yeah, these ideas have become increasingly
Yeah.
popular. And I've got to say it, you're going to love this. I have an article. I have an article on that. I have an article on karma. And I have an article on reincarnation. Okay.
And you have one on karma too?
I have one on karma, yeah. Those are 2 articles. One's on karma, one's on reincarnation.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so because there are some people that actually use verses from the Bible. Mostly New Agers do this, but there are people calling themselves Christians who believe in reincarnation. Okay, I've encountered that. So I address some of the scriptures that are used for that and give why they don't support reincarnation. Yeah, I mean, I would love to do the part 2. We could expand more into Buddhism and Hinduism and the Eastern view,
right,
of reality, and the Eastern view of basically the self. What is it in Hinduism? In Buddhism, you know, we talked about no self, and actually they call it the no self. It's called the no self. Yeah, it has a term. In Hinduism, Atman is the divine, it's your true divine self. So Anatman is the non-self in Buddhism. And the other word, which I think is a Sanskrit word, I'm not sure, but it's anatta, A-N-A-T-T-A. That's the non-self. So there's actually a term for it.
Wow.
It's the non-self. And you know, all of these religions collapse under the inherent inconsistency and contradictions. There's a contradictory nature in all of these religions. If you look hard enough, you can find it. For example, okay, so here we're talking about cultivating detachment to escape suffering, and that there is no self. So then naturally the question might be, well, if there is no self, and then you're going to get to the state of where you're not attached anymore, the state of detachment, Nirvana. If there's no self, then what's there?
Right.
You know, how can you enjoy it if you don't exist, basically?
Right.
And you know, and so supposedly Buddha was asked a question kind of along those lines. And what does it mean if there's no self for Nirvana? And he said, well, that that we don't know the answer.
Wow.
So I mean, because there is no answer, because it's illogical. The whole thing is illogical.
Right.
You know, why do you want to reach a state where you realize there's no self? That, well, of course, they would say because you want to reach the state of reality. Right now, you're not in it. But, you know, it's kind of like, but what's the point? You know, where there's no self. And how can I realize how then you're in Nirvana, but you're not really in Nirvana because there's no self. So all of these ideas eventually, you know, contradict each other.
Right. Which is why it's that hamster wheel. You're seeking, and you're never being filled up. You're never exactly, Susie, so unsatisfying. Well, there can't be any fulfillment or satisfaction apart from Christ Jesus. You're getting a lot of love here, Marsha. What would we do without you? Love you. You're a gem. And I do want to welcome our new member, Lattes, and the midlife. God bless you. Looking forward. On that note, I would like to remind everybody again, if you do want to join, so it's for community, for fellowship, and we will be doing lives on a more personal basis. No sneaky content. I'm not holding anything back from from the rest of the people.
No secret society. You know, did you notice somebody said he started meditation at age 9?
I think was that Marco?
Marco, yeah. I started mindfulness meditation at age 9.
I don't know how yours go on your end, like how you're seeing this, because I think that was
I scrolled up and saw it.
Oh, you did. You scrolled up. Okay.
6 p.m. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So Marco, can you elaborate on that a little bit? What happened? What was the consequence? Now I kind of want to know Marco's full story, actually. If he was doing mindfulness at age 9, right? What were the side effects of that? I called them. I
Yeah.
changed it because I wasn't sure if it was 9 or 10. Well, that's okay. That doesn't make a big difference.
No, we don't mind. He does say in another comment, it's a calm that comes from a false worldview that
Sure.
there is no evil and peace is now.
Right.
Oh, in fact, that now that he said that, I'm sorry, I want to say this real quick.
Oh,
I
wow.
meant to say it earlier. You know how they focus all the time, and maybe I can go into this in part 2 because we'll get more.
Okay.
I will get more into it.
Yeah.
The be here, the now, focus on the
Mhm.
now, focus on the present. I want to talk about that a little bit, so we can
Okay.
do that in part 2.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, guys, just for the sake of time, we're going to wrap up in a couple of moments. But if you have any last question for today, and then, of course, we'll be sure to set up and announce when we're going to do the part 2. So be on the lookout for that. If you hit the notifications on my channel, you'll always get notified. My dear, wonderful assistant Brenna is on the ball, man. She gets everything going. She gets
Yeah,
everything set up. She
yes,
gets
she does. Boy, she's.
yeah.
I mean, even I noticed that. She's not my assistant,
She's
but I
great.
noticed that. Marco said he grew up near a New Age crystal shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a shame, Marco. Sorry about that. And that's why I'm a little curious about your story, to be honest with you. If you want to share it, feel free to email me, xpsychicsaved@gmail.com, and how you came to Christ and everything. I love testimonies, Marsha. I really do. Who doesn't? We're Christians.
Yeah, yeah.
We
They're
love
so
this.
encouraging. Yeah.
Yeah, very encouraging. All right. Well, if nobody has anything else, we will wrap up. Well, Lattes actually said, would this idea of human design tie into mindfulness meditation?
Oh, yeah. I've been asked about this human design thing. I went and looked at it. It seems to be a mixture of a lot of New Age ideas, New Age and Eastern. I don't know how it ties into mindfulness. I haven't specifically looked at that. I haven't actually spent a lot of time on it because it seemed to be such a mixture of so many things. And it seemed to be, I think it's led by one person. It's just one woman. If I unless there's another human design thing out there, it's this one woman who's like the teacher. And so it's almost cult-like to me.
Oh, wow.
And that you kind of have to be sign up with her and watch her videos and get her teachings. And I spent some time reading stuff she had on her website, and it seems like she just took a lot of New Age stuff and kind of formulated her own version, her own teachings from that. That's why I get asked about it a lot. So it must be catching on with a lot of people, but I have not looked into her really. It's hard, because I'm not gonna sign up to get her stuff, and I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
If it's all New Age stuff, I already warn about the New Age, so it's kind of like what she's offering is things I've already written and warned about. She's just offering them maybe in a different way. I might eventually do a post on her or something. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. And I wouldn't surprise me if she recommended mindfulness or
Right, of course.
try it. It wouldn't surprise me because, you even find, and what we can do in part 2 is also talk about Christian mindfulness.
Yes, please. That would be great.
That's a thing now too.
Somebody mentioned, talk about scrolling all the way up to the top. Somebody did mention that a Christian counselor recommended mindfulness.
Yes,
We didn't elaborate on that. So I would love to touch that. We really do, because we know the unfortunate, we educate the unbelievers and the believers, but as believers, we don't want to be doing anything that goes against our Lord. We don't want to be, but we have to know about it. We have to get educated about it and test the spirit, right? Because though someone's either calling themselves a Christian, maybe really they are a Christian, but we don't know. But we need to do our due diligence and look into these things. Don't just go running out and doing these. Your personal trainer tells you to go do yoga. Don't just go running out to do it. Your doctor tells you to go do, actually, I would love to hear you, not in this one, maybe the Tai Chi. People ask me about that.
We can do that in the next one.
Yeah.
We should make a list. Make a list so we don't forget. We've already got 3 or 4 things there on that list.
Brenna, we're making a list.
We're making a list and checking it twice. And if you come back, you'll be nice. Well, I miss my calling as a rapper.
I don't know about that, Marsha.
Well, see, I have to give a little beat to it. I didn't do the beat.
I'm going to be in Canada upcoming for a great event. And actually, I can't wait to hear the other people's testimonies. I'm going to be speaking, sharing my testimony. And there's a guy who was in some really dark stuff, saved by Christ, and is now a Christian rapper.
Oh, okay. That's
Christian hip hop. I don't want to get it wrong. But anyway, I'll let you all know about that when I come home.
Okay.
All right, good. All right. Well, listen, everybody. God bless you. Marsha, thank you for being with me. Again, find Marsha at ChristianAnswersNewAge.com. Maybe, listen today. Don't binge Netflix. Binge the article, the search engine section of Marsha's website. We'll all be Marsha's by the end of the...
Oh, yeah. I have 4 articles on mindfulness.
Oh, great. Fantastic.
So I meant to mention that. So there's 4 articles there. The latest one, I think, is called Taming the Monkey Mind. That's a phrase. We didn't get into all that. That's another put on the list, the monkey mind. And that's very much associated with mindfulness and with Eastern meditation. So we should talk about that, too. I also have a Facebook page, Christian Answers for the New Age, for those who may not know.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And I love that idea, HP, about acupuncture. I don't know what Rosen therapy is, but I really have been wanting to talk about applied kinesiology as well, which I, of course, am not a fan of.
No.
At all by any, but so these are great, all going on the list. I think we could incorporate that probably with the Tai Chi, acupuncture.
It would connect very much. There's a connection there, so we can talk about that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for coming. Welcome to the membership. Thank you to all the members. We love you here at X Psychic Saved. We love our dear sister, Marsha. We love being with you today. Thank you so much. And remember to share the gospel today and your testimony, because you have nothing to lose, but that person has everything to gain, guys. Life. Jesus came to give life, and life abundant and eternal. So God bless you all. Marco, I look forward to hearing your testimony. And Lord willing, see you next time. But enjoy the rest of your day today. Bye for now. See you next time.